If you've spent any time around the bass music scene recently, then EAZYBAKED is a name that should ring a bell. They're fresh off a monumental year in 2024 that saw performances at flagship festivals like Shambhala, Lost Lands, Bass Canyon, plus a set at Red Rocks for Wakaan Rocks. The EAZYBAKED boys were kind enough to sit down with me for an interview in order to make this video the best it can be. We'll take a deep dive into the origins of the project that began almost 15 years ago and follow the story of their growing success over the years. EAZYBAKED is the duo of childhood friends Eric Ray and Andrew Principe. Both of their families moved to the Orlando area when they were young, and Andrew and Eric quickly became friends after meeting in elementary school. They both were influenced by music from a young age, with the classic 90s kid story of sourcing music from LimeWire, sometimes with a computer virus on the side. So what kind of music did you guys listen to when you were kids? Like all the way up until you started producing, like what kind of stuff were you guys into?
I grew up on a lot of hip hop, and I had a stepbrother who like introduced LimeWire to me, and that was like opened up a whole new world, you know? A lot of like techno and like house music or whatever was cool back then. But yeah, a lot of hip hop specifically growing up. Some rock music too.
Same, honestly. I started out listening to country with my dad, country music. Then my sister showed me LimeWire. Then like a lot of hip hop.
Although they took influence from music early on, they didn't start making their own right away. First, they had to get a little bit of juvenile mischief out of their system.
Andrew and I were wild children.
Eventually, Andrew started to get interested in electronic music after discovering a blog, which he then showed to Eric.
Then I'm pretty sure Andrew got me into electronic music with this music blog, MUSIGH.
Once they were in high school, they started to attend local electronic shows. What was the first electronic show that either of you guys went to?
Flume at Roxy's. Was it? I think it might have been Flume, or I think
or like a Adventure Club at House of Blue.
I remember going to Moored Fustang in Dorley. Was actually one of my first. I snuck into a club.
I just remember you bringing me there, and I had just gotten like a fake ID, and like, oh, it's like you can go now.
Right around this time, they were both issued iPads at school, and they started messing around with GarageBand, mostly making hip-hop beats. They both started to post beats on separate SoundCloud accounts, with Eric's account being called Easy, and Andrew's account was Mr. Baked. Fun fact, both of those accounts technically still exist on SoundCloud, except the Easy account was converted into the EAZYBAKED account, and the Mr. Baked account was converted into the Bakers. Eric's family had an RV that they converted to a makeshift studio, which is where some of their early music was made. Somewhere around this time, they got their first taste of DJing when they were asked to play a small local festival.
I remember this kid Kyle lent us, this kid Kyle who's now a police officer out here, lent us a controller. He had like this opportunity at this festival. It was called what was it? Something the Horizon Fest?
Yeah, it was like Horizons or something.
I think it was Horizon Fest. And then he was like, you guys come play. And he was like playing on the main stage, and we would play in the side stage. And there was literally 3 people in the crowd, and those 3 people drove in the car with us there. But it was on this beautiful property. I think it was in Lakeland. Super sick. And that was like literally, I was like, oh, dude, then we just got hooked on it.
They fell in love with the experience and decided that they wanted to pursue this further, so they got more serious about producing and switched to a cracked copy of Reason, learning primarily through trial and error, as there weren't many YouTube tutorials for Reason at the time.
But I think that's kind of what made us kind of figure out our sound, or like figure out a sound for ourselves, was just having to merely run trial and error a bunch and break the rules and figure out didn't even know what the rules were per se.
They continued to get a few festival gigs here and there in the early days, including a set at the first ever Zen Awakening Festival in 2014.
And there was like the Zen Awakening Festival. That was like kind of a turning point, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say that was like our first time, I mean, really hearing the music that we had like found on SoundCloud live and like in a live setting. Yeah, that was a very eye-opening experience for sure.
Around the time of their Zen Awakening performance, they were discovered by Thazdopee Records, which would change the trajectory of their project moving forward. It gave them the opportunity to go on a Thazdopee van tour with 12 other artists, driving from Florida all the way to Colorado. From there, they flew to the UNS Festival, where they met Yeti for the first time and connected with Wakaan as well. This would eventually come into play down the road, which we'll talk about later in the video. By this point, their influences had shifted from the likes of Mac Miller and A$AP Rocky to more bass-heavy trap artists.
Troy Boy, big influence. Hoochie, big influence. Mr. Carmack, big influence. Bloom.
And I'd say like Uzi too, and like even like Loud Pack back in the day when that was
Gladiator, Stooky Sound, Slumberjack.
So naturally, they switched from making hip-hop beats to full-blown bass music, and they were working on music in Eric's room every single day. In 2014, they graduated from high school and teamed up to fuse together their Easy and Mr. Baked aliases to form EAZYBAKED. Their first 2 official releases dropped that year, called Paul and Prometheus.
I would say we didn't know what we were doing back then.
Yeah.
We didn't even know who we were, or like, it was all purely experimental at that point.
After high school, Eric briefly attended community college, but dropped out soon after, and he and Andrew worked a couple of different jobs in the early days of EAZYBAKED.
Andrew and I worked together actually at a landscaping company called Luke's Landscaping, and that was my last job. I left there.
You did irrigation after that, right?
Yeah, you did irrigation after that.
So irrigation technician was my last job.
And before that, I was pizza boy. I did pizza boy for 3 years.
Over the next few years, they would continue to push their bass-heavy sound around Orlando, taking whatever gigs that they could get.
We were playing like anything we could
Yeah,
do.
we played literally the smallest of bars, the most empty rooms, tiniest rooms.
In 2015, they expanded upon the EAZYBAKED brand by launching their side project called The Bakers, which has now been active for a decade. They were simultaneously crafting the EAZYBAKED sound, using SoundCloud as their platform of choice for the first few years. They also landed what they considered to be a dream collab in 2015 for the track Twisted with Ledge Kale.
There was a producer named Ledge Kale. I don't know if he still makes music. But like we looked up to him a lot at the time. He had like crazy drums. Everything was so loud. Yeah. And we had a track with him. That was huge.
That was
for both of us, I know, was because that was
Kale, you're right. Ledge Kale's huge, big deal.
Around 2016, they were working on a collab with Big Mac, who was one of the most promising young trap artists making waves in Orlando. Unfortunately, Big Mac tragically passed away in a car accident that year, and the collab never saw the light of day. In 2016, they got their first big break when they opened for Brills, now known as LS Dream, on his Twonk the Nation tour at venue 578.
To us, that was like our big break.
Yeah, that was our big break. It was the first time we ever used CDJs, and we've been practicing at this guy's house. We didn't know you could organize everything, the playlist. So we had notebooks with all the songs that we wanted to play.
Yeah, a little notepad. So we would be like slipping through the notebook and like zooming like as fast as you could. And if you couldn't find it, then you're like, all right, fuck it, you can't find it. Just keep playing. That was the first time I almost threw up when we walked out there. Yeah. Because there was a fuck ton of people, and we've only ever played in side rooms of people, and it was like, holy. Never even walked on that stage. We had only like seen shows on that stage. So like to be in that spotlight now, it was different. It was overwhelming.
Another big opportunity came their way that year when they got to play at the first ever Okeechobee Music Festival. Soon after that, they landed another dream collab when they got to work with Holly on the track 3 Fish.
Holly, and then Holly, that was going to say, Holly was a massive one, yeah.
The following year in 2017, they took a leap of faith by quitting their jobs to work on EAZYBAKED full-time, though it wasn't exactly the most practical decision at the time, and in a way, they were almost forced into it.
I think I remember we got booked at Halloween to do a silent disco, and I couldn't get off work. So I was like, fuck it, this is it. I'm done working for real. And we quit. Our parents really loved it when we quit our jobs. They were like, oh, this is the smartest thing we've ever done.
Now with them focusing all of their attention on EAZYBAKED, their sound became more dialed in, and they began fully distributing their music on all digital streaming platforms, which started with the track Clone.
And I feel like Clone came at a time to where we were kind of figuring out a more like solid approach to like writing experimental based music. Like we were resampling things, we were figuring out what wubs were and like implementing them into our sound. And
from there, they became early members of the Lost Dogs Collective with their debut track on the imprint, a collab with Untitled called One Hand Clap. For the rest of 2017, they continued to grind their way through the local Florida scene, and they also released 2 EPs, Move Forward and Tesseract. Their momentum continued to build through 2018 as they went on a joint headline tour with Prophet and released 5 more singles. And just to be clear, they have always released extra tracks on SoundCloud, but I'm only referring to official releases across all streaming platforms. They capped off 2018 with a 7-track EP on Wakaan called Alone With Yourself, which was a huge break as Wakaan was quickly gaining momentum in their 3rd year of operation. This paved the way for a breakout year in 2019 when their bookings started to explode. This included festival sets at Lightning in a Bottle, Camp Bisco, and Dance Festopia, plus a headline show in Syracuse. Moving into 2020, they were looking forward to their biggest year yet, but things didn't work out quite as planned. Though in a way, it was really a blessing in disguise. They played at Okeechobee right before the COVID lockdowns, which totally switched up the life that they had created for themselves. This actually worked out pretty well for 2 different reasons. For one, Andrew's daughter was born that year, which was the perfect opportunity for him to spend plenty of time with her.
I got lucky, I guess, because whenever Ella was born, it was like right before the COVID pandemic and everything. So like we were everything got canceled for like the first year. And, that gave me plenty of time to just be with her. We didn't have much to do.
Additionally, they started working on their debut album, which is something they had wanted to do for a while, but just didn't have the time. Though it wouldn't release until 2 years later. So on top of writing the album, they also released a handful of singles that year, including one of my personal favorites, Squidweed. Towards the summer of 2021, live music was slowly beginning to return, and EAZYBAKED made their way back to the stage for Ubby Dubby. A sense of normalcy slowly came back as they made their way through the revived festival circuit. This included sets at Big Dub, EDC Orlando, Lights All Night, Grismas in July, plus a headline show at the Black Box in Denver, which in my opinion is one of the best small venues in the world. The following year in 2022, they finally released their debut 10-track album, Intertwined, which features their collab with Of the Trees called Sapped. The rest of the year was stacked with major performances like Grizz's Triple Rainbow, plus opening for Closey at the Caverns in Tennessee, and opening for Rez at Red Rocks. As their exposure grew, so did their opportunities in 2023. This included a return to Red Rocks for Wobble Rocks, a performance at Deadbeats New York, and more. But some of their biggest performances of the year came during festival season with Wakaan Fest, Lost Lands, and Electric Forest, where they played 4 or 5 sets over the weekend, causing a notable uptick in their trajectory. They also released a new collab with Monty Claire that year called Certified, which is now one of their biggest tracks to date. They also released the Rotations EP, which contains one of Eric's personal favorite tracks, Boom.
I like Boom a lot too. I think Boom is a song that, and it doesn't get appreciated that much, or it just kind of fell through the radar, but I think that's a really sick song. And just that project in general, Rotation project, I think is a sick one.
More releases continued on into 2024 with tracks like Rollin' Deep, their remix of Rude Boy by Zed's Dead, No Laughing Matter with Caspa, and the Alchemy EP, which contains Andrew's favorite track, No. So for those that don't know, the reason that this is Andrew's favorite track is because it actually features his own daughter's vocals. These tracks paved the way for their biggest year on the live front in 2024, which saw appearances at Shambhala, Halloween, Lost Lands, Wakaan, Cyclops Cove, and so much more. Though their biggest shows of the year came in the fall when they took over the Mishawaka Amphitheater for their first ever curated 2-day event called the Bakeout. It's no secret that Colorado loves bass music, and they showed up big time for EAZYBAKED, with fans lined up for hours before doors, ready to fill the venue to max capacity as soon as everyone was let in. Eric and Andrew got to spend time hanging out with fans, and everyone got to witness a stacked lineup made up entirely of close friends of EAZYBAKED, including an opening set on Friday night from the EAZYBAKED side project, The Bakers. To make the weekend even better, Mr. Carmack made a surprise appearance, which was quite the full circle moment as he was one of the earliest inspirations for EAZYBAKED.
We got big dog, Mr. Motherfucking Carmack coming to hang out. Let's get this money done.
As we move into the early months of 2025, EAZYBAKED has positioned themselves for another huge year. Their first release of the year came on Valentine's Day, a 4-track EP called Respawn, featuring 3 collaborations with OKKO. This just might be their most intriguing body of work to date, as it's a departure from their signature sound while exploring more mellow vibes. But how do you feel about that now that it's out? And like, how has the reception been?
It's been good. It's been good. I hope that it continues to grow and that people continue to listen to it, because I think that it should be listened to by a bunch of people. I think that it can help people. I think it's helped me a lot. I think it's helped people. Like the initial response was like overwhelmingly great. People loved it a lot. Yeah, so it's been sick. It's really good to get that body of work out. It's good to know that you can just put out whatever we're feeling and it gets received in some kind of extent.
They followed up on the EP a month later with a new single, an absolute heater with Dags, called WYAWYS, or Where You At, Where You Stay. 1 month later in April, they dropped their first ever collab with Digital Ethos called Coded, which was a long time coming since they've known each other for 8 years. As far as performances this year, they're fresh off the Moonglade tour with Of the Trees and are looking forward to another big year, which includes a performance at Grizz's debut festival, Valley of the Seven Stars. But their biggest event of the year, and really the biggest of their entire career thus far, is their upcoming headline show at Mission Ballroom on September 5th. They're bringing along Park Breezy, Jordan Moody, Snuffy, Torcha, Cambot, plus a set from their side project, The Bakers. So as you can see, EAZYBAKED has been grinding out their project for a very long time, and they're finally getting the recognition that they deserve. They've come a long way from their early days of producing in Eric's bedroom or his parents' RV, and I think it's safe to say that they're only going up from here. For EAZYBAKED, the future has never looked brighter. What kind of stuff do you guys put on your rider?
A case of water, case of beer, fruit, juice, Pokemon cards, snacks.
Pokemon cards, yeah.
Like just like sealed Pokemon cards, like packs or something?
Yeah, so we can just rip some packs.
Nice. How many Pokemon cards do you get? Like, how much do they give you usually?
Well, usually just like 2 packs or like 4 packs each.
Okay.
Like it'll come in like that. Like it'll be 2 sealed and they each come with 2 packs. But we've also gotten like a box. Like on Tate Beat Tour, they hooked us up with some cards because he also got cards.
Is that common right now? Like a lot of DJs asking for Pokemon cards?
I honestly think it might be. I think I saw Daily Bread does it too.